And then, so, with Michelle, you, me, Georgia wanted to say something at the end of the media that got harmed. And then there was a person from, you want her to go now? This is some folks from it was bring it down so you get a nice shot. Daniel, are you speaking? No. You're a good speaker. Heaven sakes. What's that? Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think that's good.
Can you guys crowd in a little bit now? Yeah, try that.
4:50 on parking. How long is this going to be?
How long it needs to be, Michelle?
You be saying the craziest things sometimes.
However long it needs to be.
What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
So we're here today to address the St. Paul Police Department horrendous behavior during the ICE raid in St. Paul. We're also demanding that ICE leave the city of St. Paul in the Twin Cities area. But today's press conference is focused on the St. Paul Police Department's treatment of protesters and observers outside of a raid. First, outside of an ICE raid. First, we're gonna have Michelle Gross from Communities United Against Police Brutality.
Good afternoon. My name is Michelle Gross, MICHELLEGROSS. I'm president of Communities United Against Police Brutality. The St. Paul Police Department's conduct on during the November 25th raid on Rose Avenue is outrageous. It is also a violation of the post-board model policy on police interactions with First Amendment protected rights. And the reason I know that is because I'm one of the authors of that policy. All police departments are required to adopt a policy. Whenever there is a post-board model policy, all police departments are required to adopt that policy or one even more stringent. And the St. Paul Police Department has. In fact, in their policies 438 and 438.19, they have adopted pretty much the exact language of the post-board model policy. However, they didn't follow it that day. They violated it in 4 important ways. People who were not violating the law in any way were pepper sprayed directly in the face, as were the people around them, who again had not violated any law. Chemical munitions were used as a form of collective punishment, where they were thrown into the street and created a fog, not just for all of the protesters and observers, but also for everyone who lives in that neighborhood. Once they dropped those chemical munitions into the community, they then fired through the smoke with direct fire munitions, pepper balls, and rubber bullets into the crowd indiscriminately without knowing who they were hitting or who they were aiming at or anything, because it was a big fog and they were just firing right through it, and that is outrageous conduct as well. And finally, they targeted members of the media, which you will be hearing from someone with that shortly. But they fired directly on members of the media who are well identified, well marked. This is an attack not only on people who were engaged in protected First Amendment activities, but it is also an attack on the right of the community to know about those activities and to know about the conduct of ICE in our neighborhoods. We are demanding that that something be done about this. We came last week to the St. Paul City Council because they had announced that they were going to discuss this issue. They'd announced that they will do that during their meeting. We came and we sat through the entire meeting. with them not addressing this issue in any way and not even allowing the public to discuss this issue. Now they've announced again that they're going to talk about that issue this coming week, but yet we get the agenda and there's nothing on there about addressing egregious police conduct that had no business happening and that is going to create liability for the city but also harm the community. So we are demanding that the St. Paul City Council address this issue, that the police engage in an investigation and assign appropriate misconduct discipline, and that this never, ever happen again. Thank you.
What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
In New York, the new mayor is talking about that the police can arrest ICE agents. So I think that's something that elected officials here in Minnesota should contemplate. Next on our agenda, we have Tashir Garraway Allen from Family Support and Families Against Police Violence.
I watched the videos on November 25th, and I watched our community get completely humiliated. I watched our community get mistreated as human beings. I watched our community get tear gassed. I watched our community get things thrown at them, just completely inhumane behavior that happened to human beings in our community on November 25th. We were to the understanding that the St. Paul police would not be working with ICE against our community and our neighbors. And so why did that happen? Why did we see on video footage? We even have the mayor that admitted that the officers that were out there obviously and clearly mistreated our community. This is a community where people grew up. This is a community where we have families and children. This community will be forever traumatized by what happened on November 25th, and it can't be swept under the rug and it can't be ignored, as many other things in the city of St. Paul have been swept under the rug and have been ignored. But when you show up to a city council meeting peacefully and you ask, can you speak and can you stand up for the human beings that were out there that day on November 25th that got mistreated, and you're denied the right in a city council meeting to speak up and told that it would be put on the next agenda when it should have been at the top of the agenda. If you've seen the videos that happened on November 25th, then you would know that there's no weight. There's no weight on justice. There's no weight on treating people with humanity. We're not here to say we hate or to bash the police, but we are here to say that when people mistreat other human beings for any reason at all, that they should be held accountable. That's what we're here to say. And we've seen it with our own eyes. They cannot convince us that we did not see what we saw when we watched the media get harmed for simply doing their jobs. What happened out there that day was absolutely humane. And the city council, inhumane. And the city council and everybody else, the chief of police, the mayor, everybody should be standing up as a human being to say that what happened was absolutely wrong. Thank you.
No justice.
No peace.
No justice.
No peace.
No justice.
No peace.
Prosecute the police. During George Floyd, we seen media get tear gas, pepper sprayed, and even handcuffed and detained in some instances. And the same thing happened. Now the same thing has happened over here in St. Paul. Somebody say that ain't right.
That ain't right.
Coming up next, we have an Emmy award-winning journalist who's going to talk about her experience what she's seen and witnessed and experienced during the ICE raid in St. Paul about a week or two ago. Please give a big round of applause to Georgia Fort.
Good afternoon. I stand here today not just as an independent journalist or leader of my respective organizations, but as a person who grew up on the East Side, a business owner who owns multiple commercial properties on the East Side, and as a mother whose children goes to school just blocks away from the site of the federal raid. Before I speak to the attack on journalists, I want to first say it has been extremely painful and heartbreaking to watch our Latino, Somali, and other neighbors have their families ripped apart. And not only am I deeply concerned, but we should all be deeply concerned by the way that their due process has been stripped away. As Americans, we've lived on a promise that people in our country would have the opportunity to share their case in court, that we would not just judge people by laws, but that we would have humanity by allowing them to share their circumstance in court. And unfortunately, that promise has been broken by our federal government. Each time that promise is broken, I am so inspired by all the brave people who stand behind me. I am inspired by their courage to take a stand and say that this is wrong. I often try to do my part by continuing, even though I'm afraid, continuing to show up and document what's happening. But the continued attack on journalists, which has meant to cause harm, fear, and intimidation, makes even some of the most brave frontline journalists like myself want to just stay home. Because at the end of the day, when I'm done doing my job, like all of you, I also deserve to go home to my children.
That's right.
Absolutely.
And in fact, if you listen to the live stream, like more than 500,000 people did when I was out there live streaming, when the 3 journalists were attacked, I strategically made a decision to back away. And I told the 1,200 people who are watching in real time, I can't give you coverage because I need to get home to my kids. That should not be the reality for journalists who are documenting what's happening in our community, unless we're all saying that we no longer have constitutional rights. The violation of our rights has become so normalized, it doesn't make headlines anymore. People are not outraged. Did the governor issue a statement?
That's right, Georgia. That's right.
What is going to happen? What's the consequence for violating our constitutional rights? It seems like there's no consequence. It's normal. It's become a part of our culture. So what I have to say about the violent attack on journalists by the St. Paul Police Department on November 25th is it's not just unacceptable, but it sent a message that the St. Paul Police does not care about our rights.
That's right.
That our officers are not here to protect and serve us.
That's right.
And that they're willing to use the same unlawful tactics as the Trump administration, violating our First Amendment rights. So to the St. Paul Police Department, your taxpayers deserve better. Journalists have been attacked so much in the state of Minnesota, it's just common practice now. Business as usual. It's almost as though our protections under the First Amendment don't exist. And now I even see how I've been conditioned to not document, but to fall back. Conditioned, intimidated, because I want to get home to my kids. Since Trump's inauguration, I have spoken to many local elected officials who say that they are limited to what they can do to combat his administration's violation of our human, civil, and constitutional rights. And they too are scared, especially in light of the assassination of Melissa Hortman. I understand. However, our local officials do have jurisdiction to uphold and enforce our rights locally. So we are urging you to either take a stand or step down and allow someone who has the courage to lead.
That's right.
To those who have oversight of the St. Paul Police, how are you using your power to hold the officers accountable who violated the rights of not just the journalists, but the peaceful protesters? This is not a matter of what the federal government did. The attacks on local journalists and peaceful protesters happened at the hands of our own local law enforcement agencies.
That's right, Georgia.
Will you hold them accountable? Or will you allow your silence to be used as a weapon to continue to strip us of our constitutional rights? To the media, no journalist should be attacked while doing their job. I say this as a journalist who was shot with a rubber bullet and tear gassed in 2021 during protests for Daunte Wright, and no one did anything about it. I wasn't a part of a class action lawsuit as an independent journalist. I didn't have that privilege.
That's right, Georgia.
If you choose to stay neutral while your readers, listeners, and viewers are having their rights violated, then do not be surprised when your rights are violated too. To the members of the press, we need media reform. We are governed by the same agencies who are inflicting terror on our audiences. We need media reform. To the members of the press, I leave you with this. What did you learn in J school about covering an authoritarian regime? Probably didn't learn anything. We are in uncharted territory. We need media reform. You cannot be neutral about the dismantling of our democracy and still expect to be protected by it. You cannot be neutral about the violation of your audience's rights and still expect them to trust and support you. Thank you.
Thank you, Georgia.
No justice.
No peace.
No justice.
No peace.
No justice.
No peace.
Now, are there any questions?
No, we have. So we
Hold on,
have.
one more.
We have some of the participants that were just out there peacefully, that were here, that witnessed everything, that got harmed on November 25th. We have Mary Ann from Indigenous Roots that will introduce the other two people.
Hey everyone, good afternoon. Thank you everyone for being here. And I got a little joke for everybody. Came up with this at one of our late night meetings. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Mayor Carter.
Mayor Carter.
I got so many questions too. I got questions too. Rewind that tape back on King Demetrius's live and then Georgia Ford's live on Black Press. I'm here today just to keep it brief. We were peaceful observers when HSI and ICE was at 609 Rose Avenue on November 25th. We had a human chain. We were upholding our rights. Documented or undocumented, we all deserve human rights. I'm going to say that again. Documented or undocumented, we all deserve human rights.
That's right.
And many, many, many people who are detained do not have rights. They're deprived of food. They're deprived of their rights to talk to their loved ones. And so St. Paul Police is accomplice to that. They actually weren't there to protect Eastsiders or neighbors that day on November 25th. They were there to protect ICE operation. They escorted them out. And the sad part is when ICE and HSI got who they were supposed to detain, by the way, this young man never, ever received a warrant to this day for his arrest. Never, ever even heard the rights or the due process that should have been given to him at the time he was detained.
Somebody say that ain't right.
That ain't right.
And so it's important to know that our St. Paul Police is upholding the ordinance that are meant to protect us. You all are St. Paul. You go grocery shopping with us. We're all St. Paulers. How is it that you are attacking people who are holding canes, who are just holding up their phones, no one was there to threaten or attack you all. St. Paul police had their feelings hurt. People were angry, of course. But you all paved the way for ICE agents you escorted them out. And when they left, you stayed. We told you to go home. The show was over. And you stayed and actually sat. What made me even sadder that day was the ICE agents were chill. They stepped back because St. Paul police did all the dirty work that day. Who called St. Paul police? That's what I'd like to know. Who asked them to be there? No one asked them to show up. And to what degree? So while I was attending to the family inside Rose Avenue, I do want to give way. I'm older, but these young folks, these young brave folks were right there on Payne Avenue, pushing, not literally, but getting the police to go home because the ICE operation that they protected was already over. So I want to have Ruthie and Chino just share their experience and their words.
Good morning. Okay. I'm Chino, Taya Chino, Teyaachino.
I'm Ruti, R-U-T-I.
Yeah. Good morning. Good afternoon. We're here as people who were there on Tuesday, the entire 5 hours that there was a standoff between ICE and HSI, and a family that was hiding inside their house, afraid. We were people who, I was pushed around by SPPD. We were tear gassed. Mm-hmm. We were witnesses to the brutality that was happening on behalf of the SPPD.
Again, Ruti, R-U-T-I. And we just want to say that as people who were exercising their legal constitutional right, why did Taya, why did our community members who were asking for badge numbers, which is something we asked Mayor Carter and asked them, isn't it the duty of the officer to identify themselves, SPPD officer, to identify themselves when asked for their badge number? And Mayor Carter said, yes, so why were we tear gassed when we were asking for badge numbers, when we were asking to identify yourself? Because right in this moment, while they were spraying us, we're like, who are you? Are you HSI? Are you ICE? No, your badge on the side says SPPD, so identify your badge number. Why were we tear gassed for that? Why were we shot at for that? And so we're here demanding that they be held accountable, for the atrocities that were committed to us, we literally saw as one officer was telling their other officer member, it's time for us to go. It's time for us to go. And why were they still standing there trying to do more harm to us? We're frustrated. I don't want to be here demanding accountability. That's not what I signed up for, but we're here because we know that our tax dollars are going to that. This is what my money is going to for myself to get and Taya to get gas sprayed? Right. Excuse me?
We have multiple sources from within the police department who let us know how the chain of command went down that day. Police were told by ICE, HSI, whoever went first, to come onto the site for crowd control. At that point, that early in the day, there was a dozen people out there. There was no crowd, really. It was just neighbors. They were told that people with even badge numbers were the ones who should go out there and respond to the crowd. Those with odd badge numbers were the ones who would stay on standby for backup. And so it was split up that way. And they were ready to come out in full force if ICE or HSI asked them to do so. And so when we have this so-called separation ordinance that is meant to not collaborate with ICE and HSI, I don't see any other way that SPPD could not collaborate with them if it's not getting in the way of protesters and a peaceful arm link chain that is simply just saying the rights to the people, to the afraid family inside the house, breaking up that line and escorting ICE and HSI off the premises. And the irony is that the only illegal activity that was happening that day was ICE and HSI on that property because they had no warrant. They had no warrant. And so when SPPD is seeing this illegal activity being done by federal agents, I asked them why they didn't interfere there. Why didn't they acknowledge that crime that was happening in front of us that we were all witness to?
Thank you.
Thank you.
That ain't right.
No good cops in a racist system.
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 Up next, we have Jay Yates from TCC for Jay.
Hello, my name is Jay Yates. That's Jaeyates, and I'm an organizer with the Twin Cities Coalition for Justice, a black-led anti-police brutality organization fighting for community control of the police. As an affiliate organization of the National Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression, we are proud to stand with St. Paul residents who are fighting back against the indefensible targeting of our immigrant communities here in Minnesota. The raid in St. Paul was a tragedy on many fronts. Once again, families are traumatized, journalists and community members brutalized, and the perpetrators, ICE and the St. Paul Police Department, known as the deadliest police force in our state, once again face no repercussions for their behavior. Since the inauguration of Trump and his incompetent, cruel, and bigoted administration, ICE and law enforcement have worked in tandem to tear apart black and immigrant communities around the country. In the ICE raid of the South Shore apartment building in Chicago, where predominantly black and Latino people live, citizens and immigrants alike were dragged out of their beds in the middle of the night in the pretense that ICE was hunting Venezuelan gang members. The entire building was ransacked, children separated from their parents and left in the cold. In Seattle, Elaine Miles, an indigenous actress, was detained by ICE, who refused to accept her tribal ID. Thousands of detainees who were brought to the Alligator Alcatraz concentration camp in Florida have disappeared, and to this day their families and legal teams have no information about their whereabouts. Here in Minnesota, we are watching our neighbors get snatched up in unmarked vehicles by masked men who refuse to identify themselves. And after white nationalist Vance Bolter impersonated law enforcement to murder the Hortmans, residents live in fear of being killed or kidnapped. All of this is wrong, and none of this should be accepted as normal. We must dispel the illusion that citizenship can protect us from a lawless gang of racist thugs living out their fantasies of brutalizing their fellow human beings. Neither ICE nor the Trump administration care if someone is African American or Somali, indigenous or Latino. They do not care whether they are detaining criminals or not. Less than a third of people currently detained by ICE have a criminal record. Thousands of these arrests have happened outside people's legally mandated immigration hearings. This is not about crime. It is nothing more than white nationalist terrorism dressed up in the pretense of stopping crime. Yet the crimes of the powerful are accepted as an unfortunate reality. Based on law enforcement's own data, violent crime has fallen 71% between 1993 and 2023, and 2025 has seen a return to pre-pandemic levels according to the CCJ, contrary to right-wing fear-mongering. Yet police murders continue to increase year after year. Police killed at least 1,270 people around the country in 2024. Over half were unarmed. Only 10 of those officers were even charged with a crime. This begs the question, why are our communities targeted while law enforcement is allowed to act with impunity? Why is one a crisis and not the other? And why are citizens held to higher standards than the people charged with enforcing the law? Because none of this is actually about crime. It is about subjugation and control. I am here because I believe justice begins with truth-telling. And the truth of these raids is that they have nothing to do with safety. This is a lie that the federal government is using to target marginalized communities as they attempt to drag us all backwards into a past marked by inequality and terrorism of black and brown communities. This has been fueled by appallingly racist rhetoric from not only the man-child in chief, but law enforcement, local political figures, and leaders. In Minneapolis, Chief O'Hara made a big show of standing with the Somali community in a recent press conference, yet just over 2 weeks ago was running his mouth about East African youth driving to Minneapolis to commit crimes without presenting any evidence to back up his claim. His apology, in which he said he's sorry that anyone took his words out of context, is the exact deflection from accountability residents have come to expect from Minneapolis PD. History shows us that the worst atrocities always begin with rhetoric meant to dehumanize the marginalized and distract from the crimes of those in power. Words have real consequences and impacts on policies and legal frameworks. We must demand that our leaders, no matter who they are held to the same standard that we hold ourselves to. If you wouldn't let a coworker or friend make a racist statement about your neighbors, you definitely shouldn't allow it from the people who govern our lives. TCC4J stands with our Somali and immigrant neighbors not only because it's right, but because we see that materially our liberation is bound together with all people who are marginalized by white supremacy. Black communities especially must not be misled by divisive narratives. We are all under attack, and we are all put in danger by white supremacy and police brutality. We must work towards understanding and respect and stand united against attempts to drive wedges between us. And we must fight together for self-determination and representation in systems that we interact with each day. From public safety to education, we deserve to have a real say in how our communities function. And that is why TCC4J will continue to organize for community control of the police so that when cops and ICE agents who think they are above the law harm our communities, we are empowered to hold them accountable. With a Civilian Police Accountability Commission, representatives that the people elect could bar MPD from cooperation with ICE's illegal actions and fire those who won't comply, including the chief. I want every St. Paul and Minneapolis resident to know you are on the right side of history. You are standing up for people who have been intentionally silenced. We are right to say ICE out of our neighborhoods, and we are right to demand our elected officials stand up with us or get out of our way. Thank you.
When journalists are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
What do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
What do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When black lives are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
What do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
What do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When immigrants are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
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 When protesters are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
What do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
What do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
When free speech is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
What do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
What do we do?
Stand up, fight back.
Now, if there are any questions from the media, I would like to bring Michelle up to share up again. If there's any media for any of the speakers or just any.
Michelle, could you speak to where things are at with the city council addressing these actions? They said that they would address it in today's meeting. Is that what was being said? It was brought up at the December 3rd meeting and then it was pushed forward. Is that today or what's
They're not, they don't seem to. As far as we can tell, they don't seem to be willing to address this issue whatsoever. They keep telling us it's going to be on agendas, then we pull up the agendas and look, and it's not there. And by not having it on the agenda, they can then make the excuse about not allowing the public to speak about this issue as well. I will tell you, we wrote a letter to them to explain and outline how the St. Paul Police very specifically violated the post-board model policy, and they have not even returned anything to us from our letter.
Rebecca Naker was on Channel 5 today speaking about her concerns. Has there been any conversation between your group and her, or is there any movement there?
One of our members attempted to speak at the last city council meeting. They were having public hearings on certain property issues and so forth, and one of our members attempted to speak, and Rebecca Naker made every effort to stop her from speaking about this issue. So I do not believe that the St. Paul City Council is serious about this issue at all. I don't believe that they intend to address it in a meaningful way. This is extremely frustrating because we cannot just hope that this matter is going to go away because ICE isn't going away. They continue to terrorize our community on both sides of the river and also throughout the state. So to pretend like this matter will just go away if we just don't ever bring it up again is wrong.
And then just one more follow-up. The mayor told us directly that body cam footage will be made public and that there will be an investigation.
Right. We're waiting. We're waiting. We should have access to that body camera footage now, and we're waiting. but it hasn't happened. So, you know, I think, again, that they're not serious about this. They're hoping that we go away, that the matter goes away, and that everybody will forget, but we're not going to.
What's your response to what both the Federation and Chief Henry have said? They've tried to push back and make claims like the Federation made a comment like core professional agitators. The Chief said like people were arming themselves with rocks. What's like the response from you?
First of all, those are bold-faced lies, and I am happy to say that. And secondly, these were neighbors, these were concerned community members engaged in protected First Amendment activity. It is outrageous for police to go to peaceful protesters and basically go on an all-out assault on people with tear gas, with direct fire munitions, and all of the other things that they did, pepper spray directly in people's faces. All of those kinds of things are outrageous conduct in a situation in which they were simply peaceful protesters trying to advocate the rights for a family whose rights were being violated.
What support systems are being set up for the families impacted, and how can residents and allies plug in?
So at the moment, we are, St. Paul residents have organized a St. Paul Community Action Network. And so what we're leading into doing is making sure that there's post-raid care for families affected by raids, providing them with mutual aid, sanctuary shelter support, legal connections, and really just basic needs. And above that, healing services, therapeutic services, because it is much more beyond than just giving you your physical needs met. It is deeply, deeply harmful in an emotional, mental, way that extends to generations. We are where we are right now because of the generations, the decades long of police brutality, the decades long of a racist institution that is not here to protect Black, Brown, Native, and Indigenous peoples. So thanks.
And one more question. What lessons should communities across Minnesota learn from what happened on Rose Avenue so this doesn't happen again? We have ICE raids taking place across the Twin Cities in multiple communities as we speak. So if you could speak on that and what you suggest for other communities.
I can't speak for everyone, but what we've learned here in St. Paul is that the spread of misinformation is not helpful to anyone. As press, as media, it is your responsibility to do your due diligence. One of the frustrating things that came about in Rose Avenue was they kept getting two Latino young men confused. So I would like to just reiterate, if that is not a fact now, that there was a warrant for an arrest for a Latino man that resided on Rose Avenue, but he was detained and taken already that morning. Never met him, never saw him. HSI ICE already took him. Now, the young man that was inside Rose Avenue, Jeffrey, there was never, still to this day, no warrant for his arrest. And so that 5-hour hostage situation that took place should have never have happened. St. Paul police was unnecessary. Their reactions were aggressive, excessive, and disturbing. And so the information I guess I can just say is that it is all of our responsibilities to make sure that we are informed well, that the people that we get information from are trusted sources, and that we're not regurgitating panic and panic mode and fear mode. We do need, yes, there has to be an urgency, but at the same time, too, we have to make sure that our information is as accurate and up to date as much as possible. And at the end of the day, it's going to take all of us. So thank you to Toshira. Thank you to everyone that's here that created this press conference. That is not my lane. That is not my role. I'm a matriarch and a caretaker. I show up for families. And so I'm really grateful that we have an abundance of activators and brave organizers in our community. So thank you.
What do we know about the young man, Jeffrey, I think you said, since he's been arrested and detained? Do we know where he is?
Yes. So I don't want to speak too much, but he was detained and held in Sherburne County. He did have his criminal court hearing last week because according to federal agents, Jeffrey assaulted them, which there is no evidence that states so. He ran back into the house. He drove back into the house, so he never even made it out of his car to assault anyone physically. And so they are saying that the Fed agents are stating that Jeffrey assaulted them with his car. And the only vehicle that was damaged was actually Jeffrey's, and his side mirror was taken down. So again, the misinformation that's being spread out there that this young man is violent and wasn't here is not true at all. Jeffrey is a 26-year-old young man making the best of his life here, supporting his family. He was a main income earner and caretaker of that home. He was just trying to provide a better life. Doesn't smoke, doesn't drink, works hard, keeps himself, and provides for his family. That's all this young man was doing. And so, thank you for asking. When he calls the family and checks in, there was a long period of time where he wasn't heard from, or agents or people in the the folks that work in the prison would take him out of his cell, threaten him to sign a paper so he can get automatic deportation. Tactics: deprived of food. He's put in an unheated cell, isolated. Now imagine yourselves at where you were at 26 years old. If the crime that they're saying is that he was here undocumented, he was still not giving the due process. It's not a crime.
It's a civil matter.
It's a civil matter, and he hasn't been given his due process. Again, undocumented or documented, we all deserve human rights, and they have not treated him humanely inside Sherburne County. And so that's a whole nother thing that I feel like another issue that's here that hasn't been addressed is how we treat people inside our prison systems, which they're not getting treated well. It's very inhumane. So thank you for asking. And the family, if they are going to fight for this. We're gonna right now we're raising funds for legal fees, and anything like basic support for the family. So if you're interested in supporting the family, come speak to me, Ruthie, or Chino. So thank you.
How many kids does he have? Is he married?
So he has a partner. So it's a multi-generational home. So there is a woman who has 2 older children in their 20s, and Jeffrey was a partner to one of them. They're all from Honduras, and the family's actually here on asylum. And so Honduras, and there's the 40-year-old woman, the mom, has 21 and 26-year-old children that was in the home, also a 6-year-old, and Jeffrey was partners with the young woman who's 21. And there was also a 20-year-old young woman who's currently pregnant. And you guys, the stress levels on her pregnancy, the care we've been giving her, it's, she was very much about to lose that baby. And so she's visited the ER a couple of times. And so I'm trying to humanize this. They're not just numbers. It's not just getting an alien number. It's not just getting a green card. Like, people are truly just trying to live a better life. And so how is it they're leaving a country where they were getting persecuted only to come to another country to persecute them again?
And I think it's really important to go back to what you said about there was no... I think it's extremely important to remember that there was no warrant for the young man Jeffrey that was taken. There was no warrant, and he wasn't detained. Detained means held for a short period of time and released by law enforcement. He is arrested, as are all of these people. When ICE talks about we detained people, they aren't detaining people. They are taking people, they're seizing people, and they're arresting people. And that's a very different thing. Detained means we hold you for a short period of time, and then we release you. And that is not what is happening. And, again, the bottom line, there was no warrant to go in this family's home. And under our, Constitution, you have a Fourth Amendment protection of your home that requires a judicial warrant to go into your home, and they didn't have it. Judicial warrant.
And that's what we were demanding that day on Rose Avenue, was to show the warrants. And we would say to HSI, if you do not have a warrant, you are illegally trespassing. You are not invited. Not only did they go trespass into Rose Avenue, there is video out there of us. We talked to the neighbors on all the sides of Rose Avenue, and we, as community members, got permission from the neighbors to be on their lawn. HSI nor the St. Paul Police didn't even bother talking to any of the neighbors. They just started putting their yellow tape and trespassing. I would like to note something. At Jeffrey's criminal court hearing last Wednesday, he was, because, it's not that it wasn't dismissed or anything, but because the prosecutor didn't have enough evidence, the judge decided to release him with conditions, like ankle bracelet, house arrest. But the U.S. Marshals, according to what they shared with Jeffrey's lawyer, they had direct orders to bring him back to Sherburne County. So Jeffrey could have been with his family already. So this is it's a blurry line. And I don't understand it. And no one is communicating it because there's no transparency. And they're just doing whatever they want at this point. So if there is something written, please show us. Because it's crazy how a judge could say, you are released with conditions. And yet, he had to be shackled up again and returned straight back into Sherburne because now it's an immigration process. So.
And we should say something, too, about the role that Sherburne County is playing in all of this. They've become the #1 site for people who are being rounded up by ICE to be held, including that they have taken in a number of U.S. citizens. And one of the things that we know about any kind of an arrest situation is that the jail cannot hold people without probable cause. That's right. I would really like to know what this probable cause is for the Somali woman that was taken, who is a U.S. citizen, and was held for 2 days until her husband could bring her passport up to Sherburne County. I'd really like to know what that probable cause is because they don't have it. Yep. And, the taxpayers of Sherburne County are going to be paying a dear price for all of these false arrests and false, incarcerations that these people are experiencing. This is wrong, and it's got to end. We should be, our tax dollars should be going to protect our residents.
Absolutely.
Not to contain them in cages, which is outrageous, just at the behest of an out-of-control federal government.
Also, I'd just like to say that one of our council members might have been there, and others have called for investigations, and we would like them not to be afraid and to continue to stand up and demand justice, even as you're a council member. Also, there's been some division online within the black community about the immigration issue, and I want black Americans to know that Black Lives Matter Minnesota will not ever forget about you and will continue to fight against state-sanctioned violence for black lives. But we'll also want to facilitate a conversation between black people in the diaspora to address anti-blackness and how we can come together and work against white supremacy and institutional racism, because our voting rights are going to be under attack. When they talk about the welfare state, they're not just talking about immigrants, they're also talking about black Americans. So we're in a real serious, any Americans who need help. So we need to come together and attack white supremacy and institutional racism in the 1% of this country who is devouring all of us. Next we have Tashira Garraway Allen from Family Supporting Families.
I just want to thank the media for coming here today. Thank you to all my constituents that helped bring this together. I want to thank every last person that came here today, because you're showing that you care. This affected you. This was real. The trauma that we have to feel after the egregious acts of the St. Paul police are pushed out into our community. We go home, like this happened a couple days before Thanksgiving. And on Thanksgiving, people were wrongfully incarcerated, spending time in jail cells. 2 days before that, they were literally sitting with their families after they had been knocked to the ground and tear gassed and everything at the hands of the St. Paul police. I am very deeply disturbed that the community was silenced in this time, at a critical time. How could you as a human being, I'm talking to the president of the city council, tell anybody that they have 2 minutes to speak? How can you silence our community after the egregious circumstances that happened the week prior to? So I just want to tell my community that stands here, take your cameras and look at the community that is here. All of these people are not here for no reason at all. We are here because we are hurt and we are traumatized, and we have to live with what white supremacy is doing, because St. Paul was not supposed to work with the ICE agents, but white supremacy will band together to stand against human life. And that's what happened. And that's the moral of the story. And then the city council worked to silence us. And I believe that there is people on the city council that have good hearts, that want to do the right thing. And now is the time to do so.
That's right.
And now is the time to speak up. We have a duty to fight for our freedom.
We have a duty to fight for our freedom.
We have a duty to win.
We have a duty to win.
We must love and support one another.
We must love and support one another.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have a duty to fight for our freedom.
We have a duty to fight for our freedom.
We have a duty to win.
We have a duty to win.
We must love and support one another.
We must love and support one another.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
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 All power to the people.
All power to the people.
Thank you. Shira, T as in Tom, Oshira, Garraway. I asked, wait, everybody, before you leave, let's come together real quick before you guys leave. Everybody from the community.
What up, bro?
All right, so there you just heard a press conference from some of the folks here in St. Paul, organizers, activists who are feeling disturbed after a couple of weeks ago, St. Paul police acted essentially as private security for ICE and other federal agents. We're going to try and walk out and try and get an interview with some of these activists right now. But that scene played out several weeks ago where police actually used tear gas, pepper balls, other chemical munitions on these activists who had come out to peacefully protest, an ICE raid that was underway inside of the community. We're here, we're rushing around between a few different scenes here today. This is our first stop of the day. We'll be going live again at 5 o'clock Central, and that is 6 o'clock Eastern, adjust for your time zone. We'll be going live at a protest tonight against the ICE presence here in the Twin Cities area. So if you're not, get subscribed so you get a notification when we go live for that future live, so you can see what it's actually like on the ground here in Minneapolis as the Trump administration is next shifting its focus of its immigration crackdown here to the Twin Cities area. So get subscribed, like this stream, share it so that these voices are lifted up, because the algorithms do not reward the journalism that we do here on the ground unless you send those signals. And then please also go to StatusCoup.com/join for as low as $5 a month. You help us lift up voices like this. I'm going to go and try and grab an interview with some of these activists.
Their product I wrote the damn thing, so I know.
I think the sheer amount, but I didn't like, I mean, I got there, like,
and then
about
firing
what time did you say?
Oh,
the GCJ.
Oh.
Yeah, so I can tell everybody who lives in St. Paul to try to show up on Wednesday. But what time was it? 3:30.
I hope those guys over there.
Hi there, my name's JT. I'm a reporter with Status Coup, an online independent progressive outlet. I was wondering if you could get an interview still here. I was just trying to get, I didn't get that.
Would you rather do it with somebody else instead of me?
I didn't know that. Well, I really wanted to talk to you.
Okay.
But I mean, if there's others here,
Okay,
you
let me
really
see.
think that I should talk to.
Let's see.
I guess I'm running late for something, but that's okay. I'll try to do it real quick.
Well, I'll try and be fast.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. So, if I could just have you start. This is my cameraman, John, by the way. My name's JT. If I could just have you start by spell your first and last name for me.
Michelle Gross, Michellellegross. I'm president of Communities United Against Police Brutality.
And you wrote this letter that was sent to the to the St. Paul City Council members. Can you explain the message that you were trying to deliver to them?
Yes, there is a post board model policy. The post board is the agency that licenses law enforcement, and they have several model policies that law enforcement agencies across the state have to follow. And I was one of the people that wrote the post board model policy on law enforcement's interactions with First Amendment protected activities. What I saw about what the St. Paul police did was grotesque violations in at least 4 areas of this model policy that the St. Paul police are expected and required to follow.
And what were some of those violations that you saw?
Well, specifically, they engaged in what I would call collective punishment by letting off tear gas when it was totally unnecessary. First of all, they engaged in aggressive conduct. I'm going to get you to hold on for a second.
Yeah, I got that for you.
Thank you. Aggressive conduct toward people who were not violating any laws. They directly pepper sprayed people in the face. Then they turned around and people that were just asking for badge numbers and things like that got sprayed in the face, and anybody standing next to them also got sprayed because they were sweeping the pepper spray back and forth. They also let off chemical munitions that spread out widely to a large crowd of people. And again, this is sort of a form of collective punishment, if you will. And that tear gas also spread to the neighbors and the residents of a busy residential street. And then they, most egregiously, turned around and shot through that fog. They used direct fire munitions like pepper balls and rubber bullets, and fired them through the fog just randomly at various people who again had not engaged in any criminal conduct of any kind. And then finally, they specifically targeted members of the media, and that post-board model policy has a special section on how the law enforcement is to identify members of the media and make sure that they are not in harm's way. And they did none of that. They actually directly fired on members of the media, and some of them were hit with this direct fire munitions.
We certainly heard a lot of the powerful statements, including from one journalist there, about why this targeting is so, such an egregious act. What was the response that you've gotten from the city council members after you sent this letter on December 1st?
Unfortunately and sadly, we've gotten no response from any city council members. We attended the city council meeting last Wednesday, hoping to be able to speak about this matter, or at least hoping that they would address this matter, and they said nothing. Basically, what they said is, we're not ready to talk about this yet. And I think that's pretty outrageous. These are people who get paid full time to do this. I'm a volunteer. I found the time to research and write this letter. They certainly can have a staff member at least respond and acknowledge that they received the letter, but more than that, to actually address the real issue, which they have not done.
And how many people need to get hurt before they're finally ready to address it?
Well, that's exactly right. How many people do need to get hurt before they actually hold their police officers accountable for gross misconduct in the face of a First Amendment protected activity?
The letter calls for an investigation and discipline, but it's really lacks on detail. So when you're talking about justice here, what does that look like?
Right. What justice looks like to us is, again, a full investigation, because we're not trying to just beat up on people. We want, just as we believe people are entitled to due process, we want that for the officers as well. But what we think they're going to find is misconduct, and we believe that misconduct must be appropriately disciplined. And with serious disciplines, not a little slap on the wrist, but real discipline and a learning opportunity for the police department to understand how they should engage in First Amendment protected activities.
How does it make you feel to see St. Paul police effectively acting as private security for federal agents carrying out immigration raids?
It is utterly outrageous for the St. Paul police, who are paid by local taxpayers, to act as security for ICE raids. They have no business doing it. There's a separation ordinance, and this violates it. You know, they should be upholding the separation ordinance and upholding the safety of the people who pay their salary, not working for the federal government for free.
Last question for you, since I know you have to get going, is we're a national outlet, so I want to say, based on how this has been being covered, or not really all that much covered in the national media so far about what's happening here on the ground in the Twin Cities, what are some key takeaways about the ongoing raids, the way police are conducting themselves, that you think is important for a national audience to understand, context they might be lacking?
Right. First of all, again, I want to explain that local law enforcement works for the local people, or at least they should. And I think that's a very, very important concept. We pay their salaries. They should be protecting us from these ICE agents, not aiding and abetting their conduct. And the other kind of thing that I think is important is that the people in the community, we're teaching people their rights. We're working with them. We're providing them protection. We have large numbers of people going around and warning people about ICE when they're in the area. We have people that are interceding to stop the harassment of our neighbors, you know, our Latino, Somali, Hmong, all our other neighbors who are under attack, you know, through this whole thing. You know, the people are taking this up. It should be the police, but right now it's the people taking this up. And I do want to say one more thing. There is very good legal research that shows that local law enforcement can, in fact, arrest ICE agents who engage in misconduct. And I don't see law enforcement doing it, and they need to be. Because, again, we pay their salaries, not the federal government. I don't know why they feel an allegiance to the federal government that they should be feeling to us.
Anything else you want to add, Michelle, while you have the platform?
Again, I'm extremely proud of the community for stepping up. The community is keeping us safe, not law enforcement in this instance. And, you know, it's a shame, frankly, but we need to see some consequences for that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the time. That's a theme, right? That's a theme that we've seen here, which is people crying out in not only here in the Twin Cities, but in Chicago and in these other countries around, in these other cities around the country that are being victimized by the Trump administration's immigration agenda right now. People calling out for there to be some kind, any kind of repercussions, when even if it's something as small as ICE or Border Patrol are violating traffic laws, where are the police to step in and protect people's safety or enforce those local ordinances? They've so far been nowhere. But when Border Patrol, when ICE wants to brutalize a community, police are there to act as private security. I'm going to try and get just a few more of the activists out here while we still have a couple here in the hall. So bear with me for just one moment. Pardon me, can I get an interview with you?
Yeah.
Sorry, my name is JT. I'm the Status Coup.
Oh, hi.
I'm an independent progressive outlet. Would you mind if I just pull the aside?
Sure. Sure.
All right, yeah. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Where would you like to stand? Over.
Right here is fine.
Okay.
Right here is fine. So, you know how it goes. You're a journalist. Say spell first and last name for me, please, and title.
My name is Danielle Mathias, DanielleMathias, and I'm the Director of Policy and Advocacy at the Minnesota Freedom Fund.
Can you describe a little bit about what goes into your work?
A lot. So we're working right now, why we're here today, I'm going to speak specifically around that. So we're here today because we know that Minnesota laws have not changed. We have direct report from A.G. Ellison that our local law enforcement is not to do the bidding of ICE. And so when we see our local law enforcement eroding trust with community and doing the bidding of ICE, we know that's wrong. We know that's against our constitutional rights here in Minnesota, and that our law enforcement is out of line.
So when you say law enforcement is out of line, what kind of repercussions do you want to see on law enforcement who are engaging in conduct like what we saw here in St. Paul a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah. So Michelle Gross spoke to complaints to the Post Board, and the Post Board needs to hold those officers accountable. We also know that there has been precedent that, sorry, I'm thrown off by Shashira's law. We also know that there's precedent in law and lawsuits against law enforcement agencies who have colluded and worked with ICE in the past. And so we're expecting for those things to work their way through the legal system as well. But right now, we are leaning on the people we put in power, our St. Paul City Council members, to hold our chief accountable, to hold our mayor accountable, to hold all those officers accountable, and make sure that all St. Paul residents know that when they do need help, they can call on police, because they know that immigration is not a consequence that those officers are responsible for.
On an emotional level, how does it make you feel to see police acting as essentially private security for federal immigration agents?
I mean, it's disgusting. We had school buses dropping off in the neighborhood. Like, it makes our neighborhoods unsafe. Community is not just showing up dysregulated. Community is going through intense training on how to document, report, and hold systems accountable. We are showing up in a very coordinated way. So when we need a response of tear gas and bullets flying, that's totally out of line. It escalates the situation. And at the base of it, it's just disheartening, because St. Paul Police has said to work so hard to build trust with community, and moments like this erode it on fast track.
So how would you like to see police act vis-a-vis when immigration agents show up in a neighborhood, or carrying out these raids, or brutalizing people? What is the role that police, if any, should they be playing?
Well, police should stop the harm, and that is those ICE agents stealing our community members. And so when they're knocking down doors without proper warrants, they should be held accountable. When they're being forceful to community, they should be held accountable. So I would like for our law enforcement to keep our community safe, and a part of that is holding the people who are causing the harm accountable.
How optimistic are you that that is ever going to happen?
I mean, we have power as people. We can elect folks. We have people who are pushing forward very strong change, and we need to get those people at the table. Those people need to be making decisions on behalf of our communities. And so if this city council, that we've been very proud to have an all-woman city council, if this city council isn't willing to do that, we have power to put people in place that will.
Do you feel ready to step up and enforce electoral consequences like that?
Absolutely.
Anything else that you would want to add while you had the platform?
No, thanks. No.
Thank you very much for the time. I apologize for kind of ambushing you like that. Okay. I was trying to grab as many people as I could before the hallways completely cleared out and get my interview, so I appreciate you rolling with the punches there.
Let's sit down and then we'll...
And we're gonna head downstairs here. Hopefully, maybe we might catch a couple more activists in the lobby or on the way out. But everybody cleared out pretty fast here. There's Andrew Mercado of Mercado Media. Yeah. We got a couple. We're gonna try and get maybe one or two more down in the lobby if people are lingering down there. Yep, absolutely. Yep, and that's, again, I'll note that we're going to be going live again tonight at 5 o'clock here Central Time, so 6 o'clock Eastern. We'll be going live again from a protest that we're expecting here directly of the ICE presence here in the Twin Cities area. Hopefully we didn't lose service. Yeah, we're in the bowels of a stone government building inside of an elevator, so hopefully y'all are still with us. And I'm not seeing anybody down here. And knowing how cold it is outside, I'm a little skeptical if anyone's hanging around outside in the cold, but we'll give it we'll give it a peek anyway. Woo! That wind hits you immediately and wakes you up. Yeah, I'm not seeing anybody else out here. I can talk a little bit just as we make our way back towards the car here. If you didn't catch our stream last night, we took you a little bit behind the scenes as to some of the work that we're doing out here. We've been tracking a lot of the ICE operations out here in the Twin Cities, which have focused a lot heavily on the Somali community, but also in the Hispanic community here. And that's against the backdrop of the president making openly racist and some of the most fucking racist remarks that I think I have ever heard this president make, and he's got quite a few to choose from. But he is out, but the ICE has really ramped up its presence here in just the last few days. Over this last week or 2 weeks, they have ramped up their presence, ramped up the raids that they are on out here in the Twin Cities, and so that's why we have come here again after being in Charlotte, after being in Chicago on the ground for nearly 2 months, after being in LA and New York and Washington, D.C., and covering Alligator Alcatraz down in Florida. We get to all these places and we bring you this story of creeping fascism in the United States and cover it up close in the way that a lot of legacy media does not. We're very proud of the coverage that we offer. If you are new, just tuning into this stream, if this is your first Status Coup stream, first, welcome. Second, go to our YouTube channel, get subscribed, watch all of our previous coverage. We have a lot of journalism, high-quality, top-notch journalism from these cities across the country for you to check out. Please do so. But please, get subscribed, and then once we do prove our value to you, and hopefully we already have for those of you who have joined us for a few, go to statuscoup.com/join for as low as $5 a month. You help put us in places like Minneapolis. I could not be here, John could not be here if we did not have your support buying the plane tickets, buying our gas, buying our food, paying for our hotel. Journalism is expensive work and it's exhausting work. We do it from just like the moment we wake up. What the first thing I'm doing is checking social media. Okay, what is happening here in the area that we need to go cover? I'm checking Signal group chats, etc. That's up through breakfast. Then we hit the road and we are going to be out all day today. We were out all day yesterday. I was out all the day before that. And we'll be here into the future because we buy one-way plane tickets and put ourselves on the ground here, and we couldn't do it without your support. So if you are a member, thank you so much for being a Status Coup member. If you're not, please consider getting subscribed because you help sustain these reporting trips. We do not have the limitless resources that a lot of the corporate media has, and frankly, they should be here, the CNNs of the world, because they have the millions of dollars to throw to put even a reporter on the ground for even a day out here. We're here day after day, and hopefully ourselves, Mercado Media, the other independent outlets out there, I think we are batting a hell of a lot better than corporate press, and I would hope that we have earned your support as well. So we're going to hop back in the car. We've got a few different scenes to check out here, and then we'll be live again here in the Twin Cities at 5 o'clock Central Time tonight for a protest. So for right now, for Status Coup, I'm JT Siskowski signing off. Have a good day.